The pads came on at Buffalo Bills training camp. What did we learn? I'm breaking it all down and more today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Monday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder, we are free and available for you on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, we've got some stuff to catch up on. The Bills practice on Saturday. The pads came on. There was some emotion. So I'll give you my thoughts on that, some of the standouts, and then want to close out the podcast with some really good herd mentality submissions that have been sent in that I haven't been able to get to because it's been a busy stretch here responding to what's been going on at camp. And so there's a lot of people that have sent in herd mentality submissions that I just haven't been able to respond to at this point. So stay patient with me and just understand that we're in a very fluid part of the year where the information comes fast. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to dedicate the entire show to questions when there's so much happening with this team that we need to get to. So it's a tough balancing act here for a couple more weeks, but we'll find our rhythm again very, very soon. Let's start with some of the newsy items surrounding the team, and then I'll get into offense, defense, and then some really good herd mentality questions, like I said, including a fun one on some salary cap information as it relates to potential franchise tag options for the Bills after the season. But on the injury front, the Bills had a bit of a scare on Friday of last week with Micah Hyde going down and was trying to intercept the ball, came down, was favoring his leg, winds up going to the sideline under his own power and then carted off, but in the passenger seat of the cart. We later learned that Micah Hyde is day-to-day with a hip/glute injury, and he's going to be fine. And so we can all collectively exhale after the scare that was on Friday. Micah is day-to-day. He's a player that you feel like you have no reason to rush back. Let him take all the time he needs to get right, and we'll see you when you're ready to go. And obviously no real concern here of him not being more than ready for the start of the season. Jake Kumaro, Jamison Crowder, and Ryan Bates, they continue to sit with general soreness. They didn't practice on Friday or Saturday, so we'll see if their status changes on Monday, where the Bills are set to practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week. But those guys have continued to not perform here recently, and for Crowder has not really showed up yet at all during training camp. Deion Dawkins, the Bills starting left tackle, he missed Friday and Saturday for personal reasons. Not really sure what's going on there. Mitch Morse did comment and say that he's not fully aware, but it'd be good for everyone to be keeping him in your thoughts and in your prayers. So all the best for Deion. Hopefully everything's good to go there. But obviously something's going on that is keeping him away from the team at this point. We have nothing new on Trey White, Eli Ankou, and Roger Saffold. They're all either on the PUP list or the NFI list. And then the last piece of news is something that I already kind of told you, is that the Bills are off practice on Sunday, but they're going to be on the field Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. So a lot of information will be coming fast and furious as these practices unfold, and we have takeaways to get to. Speaking of takeaways, I want to get to some of the highlights from over the weekend and really focus in on some of the big takeaways from the padded practice on Saturday, when the Bills practice in pads for the first time all year. And that's always a big deal. If you've ever played football, when the pads come on, that's a big moment. And it feels like the big talking point coming out of that practice has been the scuffle between Josh Allen and Jordan Phillips. And I'm sure you've seen it at this point. Josh Allen ran in a touchdown and at some point kind of after he crossed the goal line, he got a little bit of a bump from Jordan Phillips, and from there a scuffle happened, right? Guys are kind of getting in each other's face. Josh Allen pushed Jordan Phillips. Guys are starting to create a pile or a huddle, and you see Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis dive in there. It's kind of a weird situation. But I do want to offer my thoughts on this because it has gone all over the place. You have some people that just say, hey, it's an emotional game. That's what happened, right? It's pads are on. Guys are emotional. You have rival fans of teams in the AFC East saying that the Bills are imploding and they don't have leadership, and the team is in shambles, right? You've seen so many ridiculous points of view on this, and I want to kind of offer my reaction to it. And look, I am willing to acknowledge that this is a big whiff on my behalf, but one thing that I've always kind of challenged myself when doing this podcast is to take every opportunity to discuss some of these more challenging things and just be honest with you guys and tell you how I feel. And so as I've tried to process what happened there, this is where my mind went. And first of all, I do think it's important to look at this from the angle of not caring who Josh Allen is as the franchise quarterback, one of the faces of the NFL, and not caring who Jordan Phillips is in terms of him being, a depth defensive tackle for this team. Because if you take that away, right, if you forget who those people are, you're going to watch that clip and say, geez, what's the big deal here, Josh? I mean, you barely made contact. Didn't seem like a big deal for you to react that way and go, push your teammate, right? All right, so if you kind of strip it down from that, I think you say, geez, Josh, well, what the hell was that? But I go to a different place with this. Again, this might be an odd place to go, and like I said, I'm willing to acknowledge that this is a whiff, but I want to be honest with you on how I feel. And the best way that I can tell you how I feel is to take you back to my senior year of high school, and really kind of my junior year into my senior year of high school. I played high school football. It was a big part of who I was as a person, right? I loved playing football, cared about it a lot. And I remember getting ready for my senior year, coming out of my junior year into my senior year. And I had a lot of big-time goals. I wanted to be all conference on offense and defense. I played right tackle and defensive end. I wanted to be all conference on both sides of the ball. I wanted my team to win the conference championship. The high school that I went to, the first year that it ever existed was my freshman year, right? So we had multiple years of us being like a new program, and we weren't a very good team, but you could see that we were getting better and better. And I thought my senior year that we would have a chance to win the conference championship, and it mattered a lot to me. And so I had team goals in terms of us winning that conference championship. I had individual goals. I wanted to be all conference on both sides of the ball, and I wanted a scholarship. I wanted to play college football. And so coming out of my junior year, and I remember we lost in the playoffs that year, and I remember seeing the seniors on my team and how hard it was for them, understanding that was it for them, right? That was the last time they were ever going to play football. Maybe you could take yourself to that same moment in your life if you played sports and you realize, hey, this is it. It's it, right? It's a very emotional time for you. And I remember looking at those guys and saying I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want, for whenever my senior year ended, whether it was losing in the playoffs or losing in the state, whatever it was, winning the state championship, didn't matter. I just knew that I didn't want that to be it for me. And so with all of these big goals, I worked really, really, really hard between my junior year and my senior year to get myself ready to play football, right? I worked hard. I had big time goals, and every decision that I made, those goals were at the forefront of my mind. And I remember, I was pretty active in church, and my youth group, we went on a ski trip that February. And I remember people being mad at me that I wasn't skiing. Like, I went on the trip, but I didn't ski. And so I sat in like the ski lodge all day while everybody else was skiing. And people are like, dude, why aren't you going out there? You're probably going to be awesome at skiing. And it finally got to the point where I got pissed off. And I remember saying, like, look, guys, I can't go out there and get hurt. I have goals, both individual goals and for my football team. I want to do these things, right? If I go skiing and I run into a tree or I get hurt, I can't achieve my goals. And so I can't do this. So in a roundabout way, I put myself into Josh Allen's shoes right now. And Josh Allen's got big time goals, right? You've heard him talk about how badly he said he has vivid dreams about winning the Super Bowl and what that parade would be like for the Buffalo community. And he's pissed off. He's had 3 consecutive years where he lost in the playoffs and once in the AFC Championship game. That game wasn't super competitive, but the Houston game, 2 overtime losses, right? This guy's getting paid all the money in the world. He cares a lot about his legacy. He wants this bad, right? Individually and for the Buffalo Bills team and for the community. He wants this for Bills Mafia. And so, yeah, maybe it was a little ticky-tack and Josh got chippy for no reason, but I can see in his mind him scoring that touchdown, not expecting any contact, getting a little bit of contact and him losing his mind over it, because it's not just that, it was a little ticky-tack after the play and he really shouldn't have cared. No, it's all of that stuff on his mind. It's all of those things, right? All of those goals that he wants for everybody, himself, the team, and the community. And saying, dude, don't touch me, man. Don't bump me. Yeah, it's minor, but dude, don't touch me, dude. I can't get hurt. And having that type of an emotional reaction to it. That's what I think it came down to. Just like I was on that ski trip, like, hey, guys, quit talking to me about this. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to go out there and ski. I'm not risking anything. Where Josh is just trying to practice, not anticipating any contact. He's got the red jersey on. You're not supposed to touch him. It's a cardinal sin. You don't touch a quarterback at practice, especially if it's Josh Allen. You don't touch that guy. And that's what I think it comes down to. Josh is having an emotional reaction to having some contact he doesn't expect that shouldn't have been there, and him thinking about the consequences if, hey, some incidental contact leads to him not being able to help the team like he's prepared to help the team. That's what I think it comes down to. That's where my mind's at with it. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses come up. Now, Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, or catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hang-ups. There's no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download the Dave app and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Here's what you got to do. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Future you will thank you. All right. I expected to be a lot further along into my notes at this point than I am, but I guess I went off a little bit on that Josh Allen stuff. Just wanted to be honest with you how I thought. So let's continue kind of talking through some of these offensive notes. As we mentioned, Deion Dawkins not been around due to some personal reasons. And so I'm always interested what the shuffling of the offensive line looks like when stuff like that happens. And for 2 consecutive days, it was Tommy Doyle at left tackle for Dawkins. And Matt Marino of NY Up, Shout Buffalo Football Podcast, he noted that Doyle held his own at times against Von Miller, which is good, right? And now we've seen Tommy Doyle get first-team reps at left tackle, right tackle, and left guard. You love the versatility that he's providing at this point. Obviously, you wish you just had your starters in there and they were gelling and playing together. But for Tommy Doyle, he's getting some really meaningful reps right now at multiple spots. And not that we ever question whether or not Tommy Doyle was going to make this team, right? A draft pick from last year, a lot of tools. But him showing this level of versatility and being the first man in at times in three different spots on this line says a lot about, number one, what this team thinks of Doyle, but also, number two, that he's just going to be one of those very valuable reserves. And we heard Brandon Beane discuss, you can't be a one-hole backup. Tommy Doyle obviously proving that he can fill in at three different spots and potentially four, including right guard. I would assume if he could play left guard, he could play right tackle. Right guard would also be in the cards for him. But to my understanding to this point, he's only gotten reps at guard on the left side. The guards next to Mitch Morse with Roger Saffold and Ryan Bates out, and of course Tommy Doyle going to left tackle. That's a lot to keep up with in your head. Greg Manns and Cody Ford are getting those reps at guard. So that's interesting to me. Right tackle continues to be David Quessenberry for now. And one thing that we've gained some clarity on that I really want to kind of nail down is that the shuffling at right tackle really has a lot to do with Spencer Brown still working back from back surgery in May. And so obviously he didn't really participate at all in OTAs and minicamp. But he came to training camp and, he doesn't have an injury designation. And so to me, my initial responses to Spencer Brown not participating in team drills was, well, he's healthy and he's not participating. Like, what's going on here? Well, it really does sound like they're ramping him up. And so I don't know that this is as much an indicator that Brown doesn't have an inside track or a real shot at being the right tackle so much as it is they got to get him healthy. And we've heard more and more commentary on that from players and coaches and stuff and from Brandon Beane that makes me believe that they're taking a cautious approach with him and they want him to be healthy from this back surgery that he had back in May. The next thing that I want to get into with the offense is that the pads came on, but Isaiah McKenzie continues to be what seems like the star of practice every day. Media members, fans in attendance, everybody is raving about Isaiah McKenzie. And you kind of waited for those pads to come on and see if that continued. Well, it's continuing. Sounds like this guy's making a lot of plays, making great adjustments to the football. You've seen some highlights come out from the Bills. Seems like Josh is really gaining a lot of trust in him. And so, look, this is definitely a trend, right? We're like a week into this thing, and it's still Isaiah McKenzie every day. And so I think it's fair for us to really start changing our expectations. Maybe your expectation was always for Isaiah McKenzie to be the featured slot receiver, and you're like, well, hey, Joe, I told you so. But for me, I thought this was going to be a Jamison Crowder situation. Well, Jamison Crowder hasn't practiced, and maybe that's something we should continue to be mindful of. But as McKenzie continues to prove himself and Josh Allen continues to have confidence, Crowder's got an uphill battle here. And for a guy that's just not practicing with general soreness, and you look at kind of some of the injuries that have been part of him in recent years, you start to really wonder what he would have to do to take away from this opportunity that it really appears Isaiah McKenzie is absolutely seizing. So Jamison Crowder, from his perspective, dude, you got to get on the field and you got to play well, because the guy right now that's in your spot is owning it. And I think this would be great if Isaiah McKenzie locks this up and those flashes and what he's doing in practice translates to games. Guy that's been around. He's been on the team since Josh Allen's rookie year, 2018. Guy's been around. Was behind Cole Beasley for 3 years. Flashed every time he got a chance in a game. Had some big-time games. And it looks like this opportunity is right there for him, and he's taking it. The last thing I want to mention on the offensive side of things is just the continued reports about O.J. Howard not impressing. Ryan Talbot, Matt Perino's running mate there at N-Way Up in the Shout Buffalo Football podcast. This is what Ryan wrote in their recap column as it relates to O.J. Howard and the tight end situation from the Saturday practice. Ryan says, quote, "It's too early to call this a competition, but O.J. Howard continues to struggle at Bills training camp. Howard mistimed his jump on one play and has failed to make any significant plays when his number has been called. Tommy Sweeney, however, continued to make plays for a second consecutive day. Howard is expected to be the favorite for the number 2 tight end job behind Dawson Knox, but needs to make more plays if he hopes to be involved in Ken Dorsey's offense. Sweeney is making a case to be carried as the team's number 3 tight end. Well, a couple things here. I do expect the Bills to carry 3 tight ends. If they truly do want to be more of a multi-tight end set team, you're going to have to carry 3. And I figured it would be Knox, Howard, and Sweeney. But the reports have not been very good regarding O.J. Howard. And I don't think we can be quiet about it anymore. It's been from OTAs into training camp and from multiple beat reporters at training camp, right? We've got something here, folks. And I'm not the biggest proponent of Tommy Sweeney claiming the role. Watched a lot of film on Tommy Sweeney dating back to Boston College. I don't think there's a whole lot of upside there. He cost the team multiple times last year. Watch that Jacksonville game. Go back and watch that Jacksonville game and see how Tommy Sweeney affected that ball game. Didn't make that catch against Carolina. There were a lot of blunders for him. And maybe, we should be courteous to him and understand that he kind of came out of a tough situation in 2020, working his way back in 2021, and maybe there's some upward mobility for him to improve and help this team in 2022. But I'm not super high on him. So we'll see how this all plays out. Certainly hope that O.J. Howard can turn the corner here, but we continue to get discouraging reports as it relates to Mr. Howard at this point in the process. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening now. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, let's get into some of these defensive takeaways as well. Joe Biscaglia of The Athletic, he's commented on the battle for linebacker 3 between Tyrel Dotson and Terrell Bernard. It's one of my favorite battles right now, one that I think is really intriguing to me. I see them as very different players. I think that there's a role in Terrell Bernard as this big nickel hybrid slot safety linebacker, overhang defender, matchup guy that is different than Tyrel Dotson. I don't see them having similar skill sets. So I wonder how much of this is Tyrel Dotson's really kind of your backup for Edmonds and Milano, and Bernard has kind of his own role, but also needs to be able to do that stuff too. And I think they're two kind of uniquely different players. But whether it's Joe B or Matt Perino, they both commented over the weekend on how both of these guys are flashing, and we have a really fun battle here between Dotson and Bernard for what roles they're going to fill. AJ Epinesa, Joe Biscaglia had some really, really big words to talk about AJ Epinesa. From his recap article on Saturday, I just want to read a couple of sentences to you. Joe B said, besides the team's top talents and Isaiah McKenzie's number 6 jersey, the number I've written most about in my notebook for good reasons has been number 57. Defensive end AJ Epinesa has consistently worked himself into the backfield during team drills at least once every day that the Bills have practiced. I think we've kind of grown or seen a lot of reports about AJ Epinesa during the first week of camp and him making some noise. And that's a good thing, right? The book on AJ Epinesa is not fully written. I know that there's a level of disappointment to this point, but this is a big year for him. And we should be encouraged that the reports have suggested that he's on the uptick. Now, we'll see what happens when we get to games, what type of role he can claim, but I like the reports that we're getting, and especially when you kind of couple those reports with what Leslie Frazier has said about AJ and him being in a really good space mentally and physically. We continue to hear really good things about Nick McLeod. John Scott, He noted another interception, said he's playing corner, he's playing safety. And when you think about just the amount of interceptions it feels like this guy's making in practice, he's got good size, good athleticism, an experienced player in college, is now showing himself at corner and safety for the Bills. That's high for his chances of making the team. Now, I know it's kind of difficult to put together a roster projection and really fit him in, but it sounds like he's really going to force the issue. I'm anxious to see him during preseason games, but Nick McLeod really seems to be like a player that has made some noise here during training camp. The last thing here is the punter situation. It feels like the media is getting more exposures to Matt Hawk and Matt Araiza doing team drills, punting the football, holding for Tyler Bass. And after the first round of big takeaways regarding this competition, seemed like it was the consensus that Matt Hawk has been the better punter. Well, day two, in terms of really the media diving in on this and getting good exposures to both punters, seems like Matt Araiza kind of took the upper hand, and the hang time was a lot better this time around. So still early in this race, still a lot of information to gather. You still want to see these guys in games, consistency. I think what's interesting here is I think we know who Matt Hawk is. Matt Hawk's not a new player. He's been punting in the league for a while. I think you have a pretty good understanding, right? I don't think suddenly Matt Hawk is going to really reinvent himself as a punter. I think he is who he is. To me, the real question is, do you get enough consistency from Araiza as a punter and a holder to feel like he's the guy that you should roll with? I think that's what this really comes down to. I'm not so much concerned about anything Matt Hawk is doing. I know who Matt Hawk is, a punter. My concerns are with Matt Araiza, and is he developing more consistency? Small sample size, but from day one to day two, in terms of getting good information on these punters, you feel better about Araiza. There's a lot that needs to happen, a lot that needs to play out. But like I said, we know who Hawk is. We don't know who Araiza is. Let Araiza tell us who he is and see if you like that more than what Matt Hawk is. Now, folks, I know I said I was going to get to some herd mentality questions. I have run out of time here on the podcast, but I will keep these filed away to get to at some point this week when maybe there's a little bit less to talk about from practice. But Chris, Tom, and Mike, I had you guys down for today, but they really asked me to keep these podcasts under 30 minutes. And if I get into these three questions, we're going to go a lot longer than 30 minutes. So give me some grace there. And just know that I have them down. Your questions are good. And at some point this week, I will weave them into our podcast, so I'm not leaving you hanging. But just that's the way it goes sometimes. I went off on that damn Josh Allen thing. I think that's what cost me here. But nonetheless, a fun podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. The Bills, like I said, back on the practice field Monday through Thursday this week. And so we will respond to the big takeaways, the storylines, the things that we learned. And then, as bigger topics come up, we'll weave them in, and I'll certainly make time for Tom, Mike, and Chris. And if I get some more, we can maybe do an entire show. This is just a lot to work in this time of year with so much information coming at us on a daily basis. So that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Hope you enjoyed. Come back tomorrow. A lot to get to here, talking Bills for you every day. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.